going to make sure I have security because I know I have had attempts on my life and I have too much work to do. There are too many people that need help right now for me to allow that. So if I end up spending $200,000, if I spend $10 more on it, you know what? I get to be here to do the work. So suck it up, and defunding the police has to happen. We need to defund the police and put that money into social safety nets.
Controversial Democrat Representative Cori Bush insists on private security while shooting her mouth off on defunding the police in the same breath. Seriously, who are the people voting for this colossal congressional embarrassment? Most likely the same people who believe the 2020 presidential election was completely free of fraud. The same people who support the current and radically dangerous Biden administration. And it's no surprise that Team Biden is standing behind Bush and her mind-blowing hypocrisy.
Congresswoman Cori Bush is saying that she favors spending tens of thousands on private security to keep her safe, and that people should, quote, suck it up, defunding the police has to happen. Didn't President Biden say a few weeks ago that anybody who accuses the party of being anti-police is lying?
The president has been crystal clear that he opposes defunding the police. He has said that throughout his campaign for office. His record over the last several decades has made that clear. There may be some in the Democratic Party, including Congresswoman Bush, who disagree with him. That's okay.
It's no secret that Biden has been sharply critical of our brave men and women in uniform. His thinly veiled contempt for America's law enforcement isn't hard to spot, especially when he addresses so-called reform among the ranks.
Things I've been pushing for in our administration. We put together the ability in a bill that I wrote to make sure that we can look at pattern and practice of police departments, go in and get all the records and find out what they're doing. That's why we're able to stop the stop and frisk in Camden, the stop and frisk in New York City and the rest, where the federal government has the right to go in and change systemically what's going on. There's a whole range of things that we can do. The idea of no-knock warrants for drug cases is bizarre. We don't need that. There's a need for fundamental change in us being able to have transparency, be able to have access to the records of police when they have misconduct charges against them, to be able to know where they are, so they can't go from one police department to the next. That should be held in my administration. That information will have to be made available to the Justice Department and held in a file.
Of course, Biden would be a cheerleader for more big government control, keeping files and secret dossiers on officers in an effort to undermine law enforcement. And Biden and Bush aren't the only outspoken radical Democrat critics in the defund the police debacle. One of the loudest mouths on record regarding the subject belongs to none other than the detestable Congresswoman from New York, AOC. It's not surprising that AOC is also an unabashed hypocrite when it comes to her own security. The Congresswoman has spent thousands of dollars on private security, including more than $4,500 to Tullis Worldwide Protection, a former Blackwater contractor, a Democrat double standard called out by her colleagues on Capitol Hill.
Attempt by senior White House officials to cast Republicans as those that want to defund the police is completely ridiculous. They put up this fig leaf on the concept that because we didn't support an irresponsible nearly $2 trillion spending package, which had a tiny portion of it, $350 million out of $2 trillion, possibly to be able to go for local government to decide if they want to use for police. I think the mantra that we've seen come from the Democrats, some in this chamber and many at local government level, such as New York, for example, where one member from this chamber said defunding the police means defunding the police. And New York City proceeded to cut $1 billion from the NYPD.
Joining me now, former U.S. Navy officer and retired New Jersey Police Lieutenant Steve Rogers. Steve, this defund the police movement, of course now the Democrats want to say Republicans are the ones who want to defund the police, but you still have radical advocates in Congress doing it vocally and behind the scenes.
Hey, I guess they forgot that Barack Obama began the defund the police movement when he took their tactical equipment away when he was in the White House. You see, this is nothing new. The Democrats are attempting to blame Republicans, but when you go back and look what Barack Obama did, that's where it began. And by the way, we have to suck it up. Well, I wonder about the victims, the shooting victims in Chicago, whose children's blood is being spilled all over the streets in Los Angeles and New York. We are going to suck up nothing, but what we're going to have to do is make sure that we put a stop to this chaos.
It's just unbelievable to see them, even in the same breath, talking about, oh yeah, we want to defund the police, but we have enough money, we have enough resources to pay for our own protection. These people are supposed to be representing us, but they only care about themselves. It's the same thing with John Kerry. He and his family can take a dozen trips on their private jets, but oh no, you can't eat hamburgers.
Look, the arrogance of Cori Bush. I heard her earlier stating that she knows that her body, she actually said this, is worth more while than anybody else's, that she has a purpose here on earth. So again, I go back to, what about the crime victims? What about you, me, and those of us who don't have the luxury of having security guards around us? They're hypocrites, they're dangerous. And again, I go back to just look at what's happening across America. As a result of their anti-police policies, and that's exactly what it is, crime is going up, more cops are getting shot, and we're going down a catastrophic road that leads to nowhere but more bloodshed in the streets as a result of their policies.
And they don't even have to defund the police. In many cases, they're already demoralizing the police, and people don't want to serve as much as they used to simply because they don't want to become the next big news story and have their lives and their families' lives ruined.
You know, recruitments are very, very low. Police academies are empty. Retirements are way up. You're absolutely right. It's a profession that may be no more as we knew it when we grew up. But there's one thing that Biden said that really irks me. He said that these policies help make transparent the records of police officers. I'd like to know how he would feel if we decided to want to make the records of politicians transparent. Let's learn about some of their criminal activity or unethical activity. At the end of the day, they can't escape the fact that defund the police is anti-police. The Democrat Socialist Party owns it, and they can't get away from it.
You're right. They own this narrative. They own the results of it. When you see the bloodshed happening, not just in Chicago, but now across the country, Portland, Seattle, LA, New York City, Atlanta, you go city by city, Democrat city by city, it's rising. And the sad thing is it's coming to even red cities because this is becoming Biden's America. We can't let that happen. Steve, God bless you. And again, thank you for your service to our country because the people really do. We owe everything to you all.
Well, thank you, and let us continue to defend the police.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
God bless you. We'll see you soon. And before we go, it's interesting.